Hello, everybody. Scott Golden here with the WCW Saturday Night Review for the 5th of August, 1995. Um, this is a longer episode with it being clocking in around the um, something like the nature of an hour and a half airtime, which is a 2 hour broadcast. The last two have been 44 minutes, which means just about an hour broadcast. Anyway, nothing major on this as it just feels like an episode to fill a TV contract in a lot of ways. The Renegade is here, and he is uh, pouring his way through matches, meaning using big old paws. Needless to say, it's not exactly perfect for his enhancement talent guy. Obviously, he's still your television champion. Poor Arn Anderson having to put him over and make him look like $1 million a few months before, and that's not good for Anderson. But obviously, always a company guy, and Arn probably one of my favorite, easily my top 20 favorite all time guys. Drop kick by the Renegade, and he manages to hit a couple of clotheslines and a top rope splash. Jimmy Hart hyping him nonetheless and trying to do the best he can to get people excited about a rip-off gimmick in the post-match interview. A brawl with some more enhancement talents by Bunkhouse Buck and Dick Slater as the tag team champions are here. This is basically a punch kick brawling type match with no real offensive maneuvers that need to really happen, although a back suplex drop and then a stomp kick by Buck, and Buck gets the victory. Obviously, Colonel Robert Parker endorsing his men and Vader going into the clash against Anderson and Flair 2-on-1 gets hyped. Sergeant Craig Pittman, who's around for maybe a year, maybe a little more than that, but not too terribly much more, and hits a couple of tackles along the way and doesn't get all he wants on that. Tries to choke the man out and get as much as he can out of that process, but doesn't really get too terribly much. Basically, a very punch kick and then an armbar submission style. Dungeon of Doom with the Master and Kevin Sullivan, again, both teasing the giant trying to choke out Hulk Hogan and lays him out pretty aggressively here, hyping up the upcoming match at the Halloween Havoc upcoming. And then we go to the Shark, aka John Tenta, painted up face like a shark's fins, I guess, is what we're supposed to believe, but more accurately, just looking rather goofy if you want to know the truth. Um, and some, big um, splashes in the corner by the Shark. Shark really lacking direction at this point. Kevin Sullivan out there with Kamala as well. Kamala only here for about a month, maybe more, a little bit more, a month or two, but not here very long at all. And Shark manages to hit a couple of shots by the nature of things. Hits the power slam and the diving fin drop by the Shark, and manages to Tenta managing to hold his own for the next little while. Dungeon of Doom hyped pretty aggressively here. Jim Duggan coming out and making his way to the ring and trying to get things going in a positive direction. Doesn't get all he wants on that as he hooks up um, on the um, wrist lock, among other things. Very basic match from Jim Duggan. Duggan is removed from being a U.S. champion at this point, I believe. Or actually, yeah, 94, the U.S. champion, kind of just floundering around here. All glory knee drop after a big clothesline. Duggan gets the victory, but here as a friend of Hogan is the main idea. Flair and Anderson talking about the upcoming match with Vader, how Vader has betrayed them, how Flair tried to make Vader into something, and the confrontation between the two the previous week is a main focal point. We go into the um, tag team match next, a squash match with Harlem Heat and a couple of enhancement talents here. Sister Sherry still on the outside for Harlem Heat. They have not gone full bore with the romance angle with um, Harlem Heat and Sister Sherry quite yet with Colonel Parker. So that is upcoming during the summer months. I believe it actually begins at the Clash in August. Sidekick by Booker T and Stevie Ray and Booker T are pretty dominant throughout this squash-related matchup. They don't get everything they want on this, but ultimately get something of a, I guess you'd say, a little bit of a greater knowledge, and ultimately the jump back kicks and a couple other things there. Big attempted tackles and other such. Meanwhile, we see Booker T coming in with a couple of attempted or Stevie Ray coming in with a couple of attempted pinfalls. Finally, the Harlem Hangover gets the win for Harlem Heat. We go into another tag team match, this time Eaton and Regal versus Johnny B. Bad and Marcus Bagwell. Still looking for something more convincing for Bagwell to do, apparently. And the Blue Bloods, Regal and Eaton, are a fun team at the time. Regal is phenomenal if you need to learn facial expressions and other basic things. Good stuff here. Johnny B. Bad, 94 to when he leaves in 96. That 2-year period, probably the best of his career, athletically speaking. He works over the arm of Regal for a couple of minutes. Bad is looking pretty ferocious in there. Big back body drop by Bagwell as he clears house on Eaton and then gets a forearm off on Regal and goes to town on both adversaries pretty aggressively here. Bagwell gets cut off towards the heel part of the ring and ultimately doesn't exactly like staying in the position he's in terms of being down and out for the, I guess you'd say, benefit of what is there as far as a continuation of the brawl. Regal is sent to the outside at one point. Bad and Eaton try to wrestle around for a sunset flip, but instead Bad falls off, or not a top rope Frankensteiner, but Bad falls off that top rope position and manages to get a suplex, and then Regal sends Bad over the top rope to the outside. This is probably one of the better matches, certainly of this show, but maybe even of this time period on WCW Saturday Night. I know they struggle to have a great deal of struggle, and the Alabama Jam actually missed elbow drop from the top rope by Bobby Eaton. Doesn't get him very well, but a bit of cheating leads to the Blue Bloods getting a victory here, and the Blue Bloods talk about how they should be champions and how they are regal, no pun intended, going forward. Hulk Hogan kind of talking about his upcoming battles with the Dungeon of Doom and the eventual Giant. Arn Anderson in an enhancement match trying to take his enhancement guy down a couple of times with, arm bars, arm locks, and the enhancement talent comes up and does a bit of a couple arm drags out of things, and Anderson backing up. Enhancement talent given more than average amount of offense for the time period, but Anderson takes the man down and eventually hits the spine buster, or tries to hit the spine buster, and doesn't, and ultimately gets pulled down in a less than friendly situation. Flair comes out, and eventually Anderson hits the spine buster and gets a win. Arn Anderson talks about going at it with Vader in the 2-on-1 match in the upcoming days, and he doesn't seem to care about Vader's previous history. We'll be back with more right after this.